What happens when you go viral for being the most unlikable person in the room? And then you wake up one day and realize the internet doesn't actually want the likable version of you? Because that's the trap Bobbi Althoff walked into. A couple months ago, we caught up with her, and at the time, it looked like she pulled off the most obvious influencer magic trick in the book, the fake fall off into a rebrand. The I'm done, I'm irrelevant, I fell off routine. That conveniently turned into the launch pad for her next show, her next era, her next attempt to squeeze attention out of a timeline that had already moved on. And for a second, it almost worked. Not because people suddenly fell in love with Bobbi again, but because she got the one thing she's always been able to weaponize: proximity to bigger names. The internet wasn't watching because they missed her. They were watching because Drake was back in the thumbnail. Drake was back in the room. Drake was back doing what he does best in awkward situations, controlling the energy, steering the moment, and quietly reminding everyone who has the power. Except this time, the problem wasn't just that Bobbi's comeback didn't stick. The problem was that the comeback exposed the truth. Because when you strip away the viral clips, when you strip away the shock value, when you strip away the deadpan interview girl gimmick, there isn't much left, and Bobbi knows it. She knows it so well that she basically told you herself. The moment she tried to be nicer, the views died. The moment she tried to be normal, the audience disappeared. And now she's standing on the edge of the exact same cliff every creator eventually reaches. Do you keep evolving until you become unrecognizable? Or do you crawl back into the character that got you famous, even if it's destroying your reputation in real time? Because that's what this is really about. This isn't just Bobbi fell off. This is a creator trying to revive a dying brand by returning to the only thing that ever worked, even if it means leaning into the exact reasons people hate her. And the most brutal part? She doesn't even seem built for the kind of internet life she's chasing. She wants the fame, but she can't handle the comments. She wants the attention, but she spirals when the attention turns negative. She wants the viral aura, but she deletes anything that looks like failure. She wants to play the villain, but she still wants to be loved for it. And that combination is exactly how you end up getting eaten alive online. So let's break down what actually happened, why the rebrand didn't land, and why going back to the old persona might be the final mistake that finishes her off. Because Bobbi didn't just lose momentum, she lost the illusion. A while back, Bobbi basically did the influencer equivalent of a controlled demolition. She leaned into the idea that she was done, that she was washed, that she'd fallen off. It looked like self-awareness, and people love self-awareness because it feels honest. But then, surprise, it wasn't a goodbye. It was an ad, a rollout, a way to reset the narrative and re-enter the conversation with a new podcast, a new look, a new brand name, and a fresh start. Except the fresh start wasn't actually fresh. It was the same engine, the same strategy, and the same dependency she's always had. Get a big name, clip the awkward moments, let the internet argue, repeat. And when she brought Drake back into the room, you could tell exactly what she wanted. She wanted lightning in a bottle again. She wanted the original spike. She wanted the moment where the internet can't stop talking. But you can't recreate a viral moment the way you recreate a trend. Viral isn't a recipe. It's timing, novelty, and a weird kind of cultural luck. The first time it hits, it feels spontaneous. The second time you try to manufacture it, everyone can smell the setup. And that Drake episode is the perfect example, because even though it got views, it didn't create the kind of buzz that launches a new era. The clips that traveled weren't iconic Bobbi moments. They were Drake moments. Drake subtly clowning her. Drake steering the room. Drake making her the punchline. Sometimes quietly, sometimes not quietly at all. And when the biggest viral moments from your big comeback are just the guest embarrassing you, that's not a win. That's a public audition where you didn't get the role. There were moments where Drake basically took control of the dynamic without even trying. The jokes, the little jabs, the energy shifts, it all pointed to one thing. Bobbi wasn't the star in her own setup, and you could feel it, like she was trying to play unbothered deadpan host, but the room didn't treat her like a host. It treated her like a prop. And after that episode, the internet didn't come away saying, Bobbi's back. They came away saying Drake did her podcast again and made her look awkward. That difference is lethal, because Bobbi's whole career is built on the illusion that she's in control, that she's the one making guests uncomfortable, that she's the one with the power to disrupt the moment. But if the guest flips it, if the guest makes you uncomfortable, then the gimmick collapses right in front of everyone. And what happened after that is honestly the most embarrassing part. Nothing. No momentum, no real growth, no sustained buzz, just the internet moving on like she never mattered. In the months after the Drake comeback, what did Bobbi actually do? Not much. Sure, she did an interview with Kevin Durant, and it performed decently. But that didn't feel like Bobbi winning. That felt like Kevin Durant being a rare interview appearance. His audience shows up because it's KD. That's what happens when your show isn't carried by you. It's carried by whoever you manage to get in the chair. And that's been her problem from the start. Her platform isn't built on people show up for Bobbi. It's built on people show up if the guest is interesting enough. That can work for a while until it doesn't. Because eventually you run out of guests that can carry your momentum. And when that happens, people start paying attention to the host again. And if the host has nothing new to offer, the numbers collapse. And you can literally see that in her posting pace. This doesn't look like someone building an empire. It looks like someone rationing content because they don't trust the performance. One episode, then silence. Another episode, then silence again. And then Bobbi did the thing creators always do when the numbers start getting scary. She tried to evolve. She tried to soften the edge. She tried to be more normal. And she basically admitted that the moment she did that, the views died. Which tells you everything. The audience didn't follow her for warmth. They followed for discomfort. They followed for awkwardness. They followed for that she's kind of mean and kind of fearless vibe. But here's what she doesn't want to admit. That audience was never stable. It was never loyal. It wasn't built on respect. It was built on the bit. And bits expire, especially when the audience starts seeing the real person behind the character. Because Bobbi's biggest weakness is that she can't decide what she wants to be. She wants to be edgy and untouchable, while also being emotionally wrecked by what strangers say. She wants to act like she doesn't care, while filtering her comments like it's a crime scene. She wants to play the villain, while still begging to be liked. And that contradiction is exactly how people stop taking you seriously. Because then, you're not a villain, you're not a hero, you're not even a comedian. You're just someone addicted to attention but allergic to the cost of attention. And she's basically admitted she deletes evidence of failure. That's the difference between creators who last and creators who burn out. Creators who last accept that failing publicly is part of the job. They leave the evidence up. They adjust in public. Creators who burn out treat the internet like a stage where every moment has to look perfect. And when it doesn't, they erase it. And once you start erasing bad performance, you're not improving. You're hiding. You're not evolving. You're panicking. Now, in the middle of all this, Bobbi also made it obvious where her brand is drifting. She started aligning with sponsorships that don't match any refined rebrand. And look, I'm not even saying take no sponsorships. Make your money. But if your whole arc is, I'm more mature, more poised, more refined, and then you're attached to whatever messy brand will write the check, it doesn't look intentional. It looks like survival. And when a rebrand looks like survival, nobody buys it. So then she drops the trailer for the new season. And the trailer is where everything becomes painfully clear. Because it's basically Bobbi listing the exact criticisms the internet has been repeating for months. Bad person, bad mom, missed the birthday, not sure about Drake, irrelevant, obsolete. And at first glance, that looks like she's in on the joke. But Bobbi's relationship with criticism has never felt like a joke. It feels like a wound. Because she doesn't just mention haters. She revolves around them. She blocks words. She filters comments. She curates the feedback until only the safe stuff remains. And then she still complains the internet is too mean. That's not comedy. That's coping. And coping can look like humor. Until the humor starts sounding like a confession. There's a moment where she basically admits that when it gets too quiet, she panics. Because hate is proof that people still care. That is one of the most dangerous loops you can fall into online. If you convince yourself that hate is oxygen, you will eventually start generating hate on purpose just to feel alive. And that's what returning to the character really means. It means, I'd rather be disliked and trending than ignored and forgotten. And I get it. The algorithm doesn't care if people hate watch you. Engagement is engagement. But there's a difference between understanding the game and letting the game destroy you. Because for a long time, her persona worked because it felt controlled. It felt like a performance. It felt like satire. People could laugh at the awkwardness because it didn't feel like it was hurting anyone. But once you show real emotional cracks, once you're crying on camera about comments, the persona changes. Now the audience isn't laughing with you. They're watching you unravel, and that's a completely different kind of attention. And here's the harsh truth. If your brand is built on provoking people, being abrasive, and making the room uncomfortable, you cannot be shocked when the internet returns that energy. You can't spend years throwing sparks into a dry forest and then act confused when it catches fire, because that's what happens when you build a career on controversy-adjacent vibes. You attract people who are already comfortable being cruel. So when she records herself crying, asking haters to reconsider, the internet doesn't suddenly become compassionate. It becomes worse, not because that's fair, because it isn't, but because the internet punishes vulnerability when it sees it as content. And she knows that. She even admits it's embarrassing. She admits she'll regret it, and she still posts it, which tells you she's stuck in the same loop. She feeds the machine more emotion, more reaction, more proof that she's affected, because reaction is the only thing that still moves the needle. Now zoom out. What's happening with Bobbi isn't rare. It's the influencer life cycle. You go viral for a gimmick. The gimmick turns into a brand. The brand turns into a business. The business demands consistency. Consistency drains the person. The person tries to evolve. The audience rejects the evolution. The creator panics and crawls back to the original gimmick. And the return either revives them for a moment or exposes that the moment is gone forever. That's why Bobbi is in trouble. Her success didn't come from a loyal fan base. It came from moment culture, clips, short bursts, people sharing because it was awkward, people sharing because it was shocking, people sharing because big names were there. That's not a foundation. That's a wave, and waves crash. And once the wave crashes, you can't just paddle back out and pretend it's 2023 again, because the internet already saw behind the curtain. It saw you break character. It saw you complain. It saw you insecure. So the cold, unbothered persona doesn't hit the same anymore. The fourth wall is broken, and once it's broken, the audience stops playing along. They stop enjoying the bit and start studying you like a case study. They start rewriting your story. They start treating you like a "what happened to her" post. That's what falling off actually is, and not the absence of views, but the shift in how people perceive you. And here's where the new season trailer basically admits the core truth. The nice version didn't work. So now she wants to go back to the old persona. The deadpan, the sarcasm, the awkward baiting, the mean vibe. But returning to the character doesn't rebuild respect. It might spike a few clips again, sure, but it won't create stability, because hate watchers are the least reliable audience on earth. They don't support you. They don't defend you. They just want you to embarrass yourself again so they can laugh and move on. So if Bobbi's plan is, I'll be mean again and go viral again, she's choosing the shortest path back to relevance. But that path comes with a price. Because being the rude deadpan girl is only funny when it feels like comedy. When it starts feeling like bitterness, it stops being entertainment. It becomes uncomfortable. And the internet doesn't reward uncomfortable for long, unless it turns into a full train wreck. And that's why I don't think going back saves her long term. It might revive her for a week, but it won't fix the deeper problem. She doesn't seem to have an identity beyond the bit. And even worse, she's surrounded by people who benefit from keeping the bit alive. Because if the character makes money, everyone around you wants the character to continue, even if the real person behind it is spiraling. Now here's the aggressive truth nobody around her is going to say out loud. If your audience only shows up when you're being cruel and disappears when you're being normal, then your audience doesn't love you. They love the spectacle. And once your business relies on being a spectacle, the spectacle stops being something you control. It becomes something that controls you. So yeah, Bobbi can return to the persona. She can bring back the deadpan, the sarcasm, the awkward bait, the rude vibe. She might get a couple clips, she might trend for a minute, But if she keeps doing it while also spiraling over the reaction, she's heading toward the worst possible outcome: famous enough to be mocked and irrelevant enough to be disposable. That's the danger zone. Because people stop seeing you as a person. They see you as content. And once the internet sees you as content, it doesn't care what happens to you. It just wants the next clip, the next humiliation, the next downfall. So here's the real question. Is Bobbi rebuilding a career? Or is she just trying to resurrect a moment that's already dead? Because if it's the second one, then the next season won't save her. It'll expose her, one last time, and then the internet will do what it always does to creators who run out of fuel. It won't give closure. It won't say goodbye. It won't thank you for the memories. It will simply stop clicking and move on to the next person. And that's the one thing Bobbi can't filter, can't block, can't delete, and can't PR her way out of. Because the algorithm doesn't care if you're trying your best. It only cares if people watch. And the internet doesn't kill creators with hate. It kills them with silence.